This is one of the first things that I ever crocheted. If you're asking yourself, what is it? That is an excellent question because I don't know either. This was probably one of the first 20 or so items that I crocheted. Once I understood how crochet stitches worked, I checked out a book from the library and started making some of the projects inside. One of the patterns in the book was for bead crochet. I thought it sounded really cool, and this is the end result. It's just this tube, this kind of swirly strand. And while it does look really cool, I never did anything with it. I guess I was gonna make it into a necklace, but honestly, this is not the kind of necklace that I would ever wear. So I've had this strand of crocheted beads just sitting in a bucket for the last probably 15 years. And as much fun as I had crocheting this, I never touched bead crochet again until last month. I made this cute little chapstick holder from a kit by Gracie Simpson's store on Etsy. So today I'm going to talk about the kit, talk about my own journey getting back into bead crochet, and hopefully inspire y'all to give bead crochet a try yourself. So here's the backstory on what finally got me back into trying bead crochet. Every now and then, my algorithm on Instagram or YouTube or wherever will dial in perfectly and show me something I didn't know I needed to see. And it started showing me this YouTube channel called Gracie Simpson, and her channel focuses on bead crochet projects. I got hooked. I was watching her shorts every time they popped up, and I was feeling the itch like, now is my time to get back into bead crochet. I need to make it happen. But I was still hesitant because I didn't know what to make. I didn't want to make another project that would just sit and be nothing. And I really wasn't sure what materials I needed as far as what type of beads, what size of crochet thread, what crochet hook. But then I found out that she sells kits for these chapstick holders on her Etsy shop. So at that point I took the plunge and ordered myself a kit. When you order the kit, you have lots of options depending on what supplies you already have on hand and what supplies you need. There's 5 different tiers of materials. The basic has the beads and the crochet thread, as well as a link to the pattern. If you go a step up to the expanded kit, it also includes the needles to thread the beads and a foam mat for beading. If you go one step up to the beginner essentials, it also adds in a crochet hook. Then there's the deluxe and the ultimate. Deluxe has all the base materials you need, so the beads, the thread, the needles to thread it on, and the foam mat, but it also comes with 2 bead trays. And then the ultimate includes all of that along with the crochet hook. I opted for the deluxe kit. And the nice thing about these different tiers is they all have different price points. So if you already have needles to thread the beads on and you have the right size crochet hook, the basic kit is only $13. So I feel like that's a really reasonable price. And then to go up to the kits that have more items included really isn't that much more. And at the time I ordered, the deluxe kit was $20. With shipping and tax, my total came to $26.03. I feel like that's a pretty great deal because 1, I got everything I needed. I didn't have to make any choices or do any research on my own. And 2, I got the bead trays. The bead trays were really helpful with this project. If you order a kit and then later on decide that you want the bead trays, you can order those as an add-on item, and 2 of them cost $13 at the time I'm filming this. So for me to go from the $13 beginner kit and add in the bead trays along with the other things in the deluxe kit, it only bumped my price up by $7. So basically for an additional $7, I got the bead trays, which normally would have cost me $13, along with the extras like the needles. When you order your kit, you also get to decide between 4 designs. Honestly, they're all really cool looking. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. This was probably the hardest part of decision making when I ordered because I really liked the wave pattern, but I am very partial to the color green. I went back and forth in my mind of, do I go with the wave pattern or do I go with the green one? But then when I went to order, I saw there was a box to request personalization. So I sent in a little message asking, hey, is it possible if I could use 2 of the green colors shown in the Earth kit and then the 2 white colors from the Air kit? And she responded so quickly. She said, yes, that was perfectly acceptable. And she sent me a whole chart of all the different bead color options. So I got to pick from like, I don't know, probably like 20 different options. It was awesome. So I was able to get exactly the colors I wanted, namely these colors. My order was shipped quickly, and then it was just a matter of waiting for it to arrive. I was really impatient, but my order arrived and I jumped right in. Upon receiving the kit, the first thing that I really liked was the packaging. I'm a little particular when it comes to packaging. I like nice packaging, but I do not like excessive packaging. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes on Etsy, sellers will include a little extras and bonuses like some candy or stickers. And while I think those things are nice, I'm kind of think very like business and practical oriented, and I recognize that if those extras are included in my Etsy order, really it means I'm paying for them. The cost the Etsy seller charging has to be enough to cover those extras, and quite honestly, usually the extras are things I just end up throwing out. So I really like that the packaging was not excessive. At the same time, the packaging was very cute and very secure. I think the colorful bubble mailers are so much fun, and with it being a bubble mailer, everything was packed very securely and everything arrived exactly the way it was supposed to. So when you open your kit, you're gonna have whichever items you ordered for your kit, and there will also be a card with 2 little QR codes. One QR code takes you to the video tutorial, which is where you learn how to crochet the pattern, and then the other QR code takes you to a document where you learn the pattern of how to string up the beads. So with bead crochet, you have to put all the beads onto the string before you ever start crocheting. So that was step 1 for me, was to start stringing up the beads. The video tutorial goes over this somewhat too, but the general idea of the bead pattern is you're stringing on all the beads starting from the end of the project and then working to the front. Then when you crochet, the beads at the front will be towards your working end of yarn, so you're gonna start working around and going down, and then you'll end with those beads that you first strung on. I don't know how clearly I'm saying that. Basically, the beads get strung on in the opposite order that you crochet them. So if my arm is the strand and this is the working tail and this end is connected to like the yarn ball, when I slide this first bead on, and then the second bead and then the third bead, but then I go to crochet, the first bead that's gonna come off is the last bead that I strung on. Hopefully that makes some kind of sense. This is the hardest part of the whole process. The reason why is it's so easy to make a mistake. If you have one extra bead or one bead too few, or you forget a section of beads, yeah, it's gonna mess up the pattern. The way bead crochet works is we work in the round and essentially you're spiraling your bead strand. So when you have your strand of beads, you could almost think of it like if you were to wrap it around a tube, then the pattern will appear. And so that means if you're off by just one bead, all the following rounds are gonna be off, your pattern's gonna be shifted, and it's not gonna look the way it's supposed to. I made multiple mistakes. There was a bit of frustration in bead unstringing and restringing. I don't recommend making mistakes, but just prepare yourself that you might make a mistake or two. The bead pattern itself has no issues, it's just more the human error aspect, so I would recommend coming up with some way to keep track of where you are in the bead stringing order. Since I was filming on my phone, I started just kind of marking off on my laptop. I had a piece of paper over the screen and then marked it off with a marker. But once I wasn't using my phone to film, I just took a screenshot of the pattern, went into my photo and edited it and just would cross it off each time I completed a section of beads. So then once your beads are all strung up, that's when it's time to go to the video tutorial. And the video tutorial is really nicely put together. Her instructions are clear and easy to follow. And something she does that I really liked is she illustrates the stitches using worsted weight yarn and pony beads, which makes it a lot easier to see. Because this thread and these beads are very tiny. With this pattern, you work from the top down. So you first crochet the little loop for the carrier, then you crochet a ring, and then you start crocheting single crochet around and adding the bead. One quick thing that I realized after I started the pattern that wasn't specifically mentioned in the tutorial is you do want to leave yourself a long starting tail. That's because the starting tail will get used for round 1. You work round 1 around that starting tail. I had to redo the beginning a couple times because my tension wasn't quite right. So fortunately, I was able to realize I need to leave a somewhat long tail before I was getting to the point where I needed the long tail, but that's something that's good to know before you start. And then finally, after all the hard work of stringing the beads and getting the project set up and started, it was time to actually crochet with the beads. And that is when I remembered just how much fun it is and just how satisfying it is every time you slide a bead and crochet it on there. If you've never done bead crochet before, it might seem like, oh, the crochet portion is going to be really confusing. It is literally just single crochets and you slide a bead at one point. There is nothing crazy fancy. It's just you crochet your stitch like normal and there happens to be a bead there. Entire project is single crochets except for a few slip stitches at the bottom. I was so excited for this project that I got it done within like 48 hours of receiving it. I even took it out in the pool with me, had it sitting in a little basket, sat outside and worked on it when I was watching TV at night. I did, however, get about halfway through and realize I had a mistake. So that was a lot of unraveling and then restringing of the beads, which again, I highly recommend just like doing it right the first time, as if mistakes are intentional, you know. But anyways, I found where my error was. I got it worked out. I technically do have a mistake. If you look at these bottom white sections, see the top of the wave, it's a little bit chunkier than the other tops of the waves. I didn't notice that mistake, and honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. It really doesn't detract from the pattern at all. And so anyways, with all of that said, I eventually got my little project completed. I absolutely love it. The project itself is so cute. The bead pattern and the video tutorial are so well put together, and it really gave me the confidence to get back into it, because I didn't have to do any of the guesswork. I was given the bead size I needed, the thread size I needed, the hook size I needed, and going through this helped me really understand the way that patterns and bead crochet is structured, and it's enabled me to start working on some of my own designs. So I've got this project here that I'm pretty much done assembling. I just need to add a zipper to the top. It's gonna be like a little pouch kind of bag. This was so much fun to play around with designing it and working through it. Mistakes were made along the way, for sure, but I felt really proud of myself for being able to come up with my own design and get it all put together. So the last thing I want to mention, both about the kit and bead crochet in general, is the quality of your materials is going to determine the quality of your end result. Everything I receive in the kit, very high quality. The beads themselves in particular are so uniform in size, and when they're uniform in size, it makes the pattern pop really well. These beads came from Hobby Lobby, and when you buy beads from a craft or hobby store, in my experience, they tend to be very affordable for a reason. If you look at the top pink petal there, you can see that there's that one bead that's really big. There's a green one there that's really big. When I strung these beads up, I tried to pull any beads that were very different in size or had blemishes. I tried to pull them out. But the reality of it is these beads and most beads that are kind of more like economy crafting beads that you'll find in a big box store is not going to be as high quality as what comes in the kit. I did stock up on a bunch of beads from Hobby Lobby because one, they were on sale and the price was very reasonable, and two, it gives me kind of the freedom to play around with coming up with some new designs versus investing in a bunch of higher quality beads while I'm still just getting things figured out. However, once I get done with the handful of projects that I'm making using just the craft store beads, I will most likely swap over to ordering online from the place where she gets her beads, because again, the quality is phenomenal on those. So all of that to say, if you've ever thought about getting into bead crochet, I highly recommend checking out this chapstick holder kit. I'm not sponsored by her shop or anything, by the way. I've never actually met her. I thought this was a really cool project. It helped me get back into bead crochet, and I thought I would share it with y'all in case you've ever wanted to give it a try, but felt a little intimidated or overwhelmed by it. So now I want to hear in the comments, have you ever tried bead crochet, or have you wanted to but something's holding you back? Let me know what you think about bead crochet, and let me know if you have any ideas of other things I should make with bead crochet. Right now I'm kind of focusing on bags and pouches and things, but I know there's got to be more things that can be made with bead crochet, so let me know if you have any ideas for me. I hope you have a wonderful day and happy crafting.